Today, we will speak with Barbara Cooks, an amazingly accomplished business leader and one of the most prominent INSEAD alums. Barbara is a multi-pioneer who has multi-reinvented herself and is a multi-board member. So multi to the third power. She's had billions of dollars of impact, maybe more, through her engineering of massive global supply chains. She also made a substantial contribution to the future of our planet through her sustainability work. She pioneered some of the first foreign investments in Central and Eastern Europe, post-communism, with companies like ABB, Ford, and Nestle. She was the first woman on the Siemens management board after they looked for 160 years. That was quite a headhunter assignment. And she opened the door for many others through that. Most recently, she has reinvented herself as a member of multiple non-executive and advisory boards and companies you might have heard of, like Henkel, Adobe, Total. In sum, I did the math, the multinationals in which Barbara was a leader have revenue of about $1 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's 30 times NVIDIA, which is today's AI darling and what everybody's talking about. It's also 2.5 times the revenue of Apple, the world's most valuable company. So Barbara certainly has had some reach. It's easy to see why INSEAD named her one of the 50 alums that most changed the world. So I could go on and on about Barbara's roles, accomplishments, received recognition, but probably I should stop there. You can find more on her LinkedIn. Also, her site, I highly recommend, barbaracooks.com, where you can also be in touch with her. I don't know, Barbara, anything to add or correct from this?
Well, first of all, it's really great to be here. It's always really nice to be with INSEAD and INSEAD teams and alumnus. And thanks so much, Robert, for having set this up. Well, first of all, your presentation is a bit overstated, you know. I always did what I like to do, and that's it.
Let's talk about the non-executive boards and the challenges that face non-executive boards. And again, besides sustainability, which we'll come back to. So what do you think the key challenges are for non-executive boards these days around strategy, AI, diversity? I don't know, what are your feelings?
Well, the first, I mean, times are tough. And looking back, I think I've never lived such complex times as today. And I think the most important element, and some boards don't seem to recognize that as yet, is that we are heading towards a new world order. After 40 years of, let's say, relative stability. And it's really a fight, you know, democracy against autocracy. And I think that's there. And how do you move in that as a company? I mean, you still build a single factory in South Korea. I mean, we had that situation in one of the boards. So there is a lot of issues that are impacting us. And what it really means that boards also now have to have kind of a more political intelligence and really take that as a base. Secondly, of course, all implication on artificial intelligence, but not just that. There are so many disruptive technologies that are there that can make or break your business. So I think many things, the demographic changes, you know, think of Gen Z, think of aging population, just look at China, the aging population. And it's really the question how to navigate a company without losing balance. And more importantly, exploiting new opportunities. So I think strategically today, the boards have a really challenging role. And it's not anymore the times that you can, you know, fix a strategy and then you keep it for the next 5 to 10 years. That will not, you can work in scenarios, you can work in frameworks, but you also need to have the agility and responsiveness to adjust. And one clear thing is, as a board, to make sure that new opportunities that come up, that the company is identifying them and addressing them, because there's so many opportunities around us. And the task is not, let's say, to manage the old, but really the task is to look and identify the new.
It sounds sort of impossible because, as a non-executive board member, you have a limited number of days with the company and you have all the compliance issues, the housekeeping, the financial reporting, auditing, safety issues, compliance, regulatory. How do you find time? How do you manage to focus on the right things in that short period of time you have together?
I think INSEAD also made a lot of research on, how the board allocates its time. And I think what comes out of all these surveys always not enough on strategy. And that really has to be changed. I mean, there has to be more time on strategy. On the whole housekeeping side, as I call it, which is the reporting, it's the compliance, is ESG the more, let's say, accounting part of it. It's a matter of organizing it. What has been extremely well done in Total, where we basically had the whole issue of compliance, etc., was part of one of the committees. And also they had a direct feedback, a direct report of the anonymous reporting system of the employees, which is really, really important. It's so important in a company to have an anonymous reporting system globally, where anybody in the company can just, whatever, if there is a comment that doesn't go through the normal organization, can make that comment. So in Total, we had that committee, we had a direct report of all these issues, and we went back to the board and we would say, okay, that trust us, housekeeping ticked off. And then you can really spend time on strategy. In a number of boards, of course, you have strategy committees, you have sustainability committees that look more at the opportunity side.
What about your advice to the people listening that might want to work on a board? What do you have to do? I mean, you've made some great career moves that people would love to be able to do or emulate. How do you get there? What skills, what relationships, headhunters, I don't know, knowing the executives, how do you actually navigate that and find those positions, or do they find you, or how did they work for you? And what would your advice be?
I think firstly, when you're in an executive role and younger, it's good to add one board. And it doesn't have to be a big board, but just have one board next to it and test it. I mean, also you get experience, you see, do I like it? How do I proceed? Secondly, I would say INSEAD has a really good program, a training program it's called the International Directors Program. Actually, I have been for a time director in residence for corporate governance, so sometimes also teaching there more from the practical perspective, which I always enjoyed. So it's also to learn a lot about what it means and just start and network. I think networking is really, really important, but also to think, where can you contribute? In what company can I contribute most? But I also warn you, it's not actually, everybody thinks board is the role of the stars. It's the best thing you can do in your life. What you can really do as an impact, you can do much more as an executive. So also don't overstate. Boards are really important. To be a board member is great because you can give back your experience. I like to do it now. It's fantastic. But it's not really, it's a little bit overstated, I would say. So it's good to test, use your network, learn about it, test it start with a small board and look how it goes. And then you will see, is it something really for you or maybe not as you have thought.
With that, I'll hand over to Cynthia.
I want to now deep dive in your experience on sustainability. Let me start with sustainability in the boardroom. I read a very interesting article that you wrote, I think in 2019, about what boards can learn from Greta. I took something very important that was, that by 2030, and we're getting very close to that date, we will be consuming 2 Earths, and we only have one, or less than one left by now. So tell us, Barbara, what did you take from that reflection on your article of what can boards learn from Greta?
When Greta was becoming an icon, I just thought it's good maybe to think what boards have to do to respond to this, and especially what the contribution of a board can be, not to have the issue that we need 2 planets, because actually we only have one, and there is not yet the copy machine. Even the best engineer, we don't have yet the copy machine for the planet. So the first thing boards really have to do to see, is sustainability firmly anchored into the company and into the company's DNA? Or is it just something they're doing because it's being done? Secondly, is it part of the strategy of the company? And for me, strategy means, have they identified the business opportunity for this company in sustainability rather than an internal program? Many companies, now they appoint a CSO, they have another corporate initiative, they call it. Corporate initiatives are hated by all corporate employees, yes? And then they say, okay, we are perfect, yeah? That's not the point. The point really is to say, what is the business opportunity? So really to say, what is the opportunity, and is it integrated in the strategy of the company? And then, of course, also the next point would be, because sustainability is also a matter of time horizon. Sustainability is also not just short-term, but also have a longer-term perspective. So in all this, is the company set up to have this longer-term perspective also in their strategy? Then, of course, is the reporting done? Is the housekeeping done? Walk the talk internally? And lastly, the board members should be role models. Measure your own footprint. There is an app. Use the appropriate means of transportation. Also be a little bit a role model, not a little bit, be a role model for the teams in the company. So this would be my advice for boards.
Amazing. I love how you touch on that, on the long term particularly, because I'm going to move into the second big question on that space of boards. And there seems to be still a bit of a conflict between profits and the focus on sustainability. And I think you talk about something very important. It needs to be in the strategy, in the overall strategy, right? But we still sense that continuous conflict between, but we have quarterly reports and we have profits. So the short term versus long term, how does that play in sustainability discussions in the boardroom?
We now talk always about ESG, sustainability is ESG. I don't like this too much, ESG. What is ESG? I much more prefer, as a definition for sustainability, I call them the 3 Ps. So one is people, the other one is planet, and the third one is profit. And sustainability is to balance those 3. And I give you a couple of examples. In Siemens, we took the decision, I was part of that decision process, to exit solar energy. Now, you would say from a sustainability point of view, wrong decision. But balancing the 3, we were number 20 in the world in solar with a European cost position. So it's so important to always to balance the 3. And so for me, the PPP, the 3 Ps, is much more meaningful than the ESG.
I love that PPP. Always acronyms work very well in the business world. So you actually just touched on my second big bucket, which is the corporate world, right? And we briefly talked about that before. Is it all greenwashing, as some people like to call it nowadays? Tell me a bit more about that experience. You talk about your role in global supply chain, right? And how that was eye-opening also. That must have been incredible from the point of sustainability, seeing all the different approaches across the world. What did it take to get some progress in sustainability on that global supply chain role? And what do you think will be the challenges ahead?
I'm really optimistic because I think a lot of things have changed in the last years. So first of all, we have the European Green Deal. And there the plan is to invest €1 trillion in the next 10 years okay? Secondly, we have the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, which also has a green component, and this is $783 billion US dollars. So there's big money there, okay? So money's there. Secondly, when you look at the technologies today, just existing technologies, we could, since 10 years, we could solve 2/3 of our CO2 problem just by using these technologies. So money's there.
That's promising.
Are there. And more the willingness is there. And, you know, companies with greenwashing, I mean, transparency is the biggest scalpel. As a company, you need to walk the talk. And especially in an executive role, but also in a non-executive, I can tell you my questions on, you know, supply chain, child labor, etc., is extremely strict.
Absolutely.
So greenwashing, you know, maybe some companies still try to do that, but, you know, I don't think it will be there. This is not a sustainable solution.
I love what you say, you know, the optimism, because usually in the day-to-day, we keep hearing a lot of pessimistic assessments of the world out there. And I think, as you say, there are billions, trillions behind this across the world. And if we have people like you and people like the INSEAD leaders that go and get the stuff done, I think we can probably get much farther than where we are today. So that's a very good optimistic message to all of us. Let me move into the next bucket, which is actually sustainability from the government point of view, international organizations, non-for-profits. And again, everybody's playing a role here, right? You were personally involved in shaping the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that has become the Bible in sustainability. How successful do you think the effort has been today? And going forward, what do you see will be the critical challenges to achieve them?
You know, we worked 2 years with Professor Jeffrey Sachs, formerly Harvard and Columbia, and for Ban Ki-moon. It was an international team, we were 6. But when we came out with 17 goals, I said to myself as a manager, this is far, it will never fly. I thought it was too many goals, okay? But what I'm really impressed, you know, nowadays, even take a city of Geneva, they tell me, oh, we work on number 13. Or this company, oh, we work on this and this. I think the framework and this really has taken off. And what is also good for a company that wants to move strategically in sustainability, take the 17 and then say, what is our, not me, you don't need 5, okay? Take 1. What is ours? And use it as a framework. And what has been, I think, very well worked out behind each of those SDGs is a very clear definition. You know, what's the state today? What's the achievement? How it can be done, and so on. I think it's a very good framework, and I'm actually quite pleased with the actual results. I have to say, I didn't expect with 17 goals that it will go like that.
I want to ask you, actually, given that we are in Global INSEAD Day, INSEAD is the connector for all of us. You talk a lot about networks and the power of networks. INSEAD being an independent institution and a non-for-profit organization shaping those leaders of tomorrow, all of us that are here today, what do you think about INSEAD initiatives in sustainability? Where do you see INSEAD having to step up or to take more action for the future?
You know, I'm a member of the advisory board, so obviously we can exchange together with my colleagues and give input. What's really important and what has happened now is that it's not a separate institution, but sustainability has to be a core part of the MBA program. And I think they have been working on that. I think that's really important, not to have it like a separate thing, you know, but really mainstream, part of the strategy program, part of all the MBA, let's say, elements. Sustainability has to be, let's say, integrated in that. And I think that they have been working on that, and I think that is happening.
So, Vic, are there any questions from the audience?
Yes, there are questions, and I have a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All yours.
Jonathan from New York says, whether you see a shift in how boards and executives are interacting and how they should be interacting in the future. We talked a lot about the role of executive versus non-executive, and how are they interacting in a way that's going to be the most productive?
I think it should not be so stiff, kind of, okay, boards do that and the executive team does that. Yeah. So in some countries, boards should not get involved in strategy, as an example. I think it's wrong, it should really be cooperation. However, there's also clear responsibility. Yes, at the end of the day, yeah, the CEO is responsible to make things happen, but obviously using the board as a sounding board, using the board also as a, let's say, a mechanism to interact with governments, with customers, etc., to investment bankers, God knows what. So I think together, it's like an orchestra with a good conductor. The music can be better.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. The second question that came in is from Raghu out of Houston. He has noticed that a lot of companies are stuck on this sustainability reporting, and I've seen a lot of that myself. How can the board switch to focus on, say, decarbonization of operations or even transforming their portfolios?
Well, transforming the portfolio is part of the strategy and has to be done. Yeah, just applying, some companies apply today already, or since 10 years, a CO2 price. So certain businesses, you will not be able to continue. And these decisions, you need to take them early on and think what you do with it. So strategically is important, and obviously internal, walk the talk, really think. I mean, in Siemens, we went through all the 100 factories, their own Siemens factories. I can tell you the factory managers, they love to do that, to get more energy, to get, let's say, energy efficiency targets achieved. That was great because it was something new. So to do the internal programs, I think is also important. And this is not too complicated. You give them a year and and then, Robert, you call them every day.
Will do.
And do it with grace and charisma, for sure. I have a question myself, and that is, what are leadership traits that you see that will help us move towards designing a sustainable future?
I think it's more the cooperative leadership style. I think what's the second one that is important is diversity. To have really diverse views. And it's, for me, not gender alone. It's experiences, it's age, it's backgrounds, it's nationalities, but really to bring that into play. And I think that all that will move towards a better world. It's also to involve the younger generations more. And I've always picked, for big sustainability projects, pick younger leaders because they're just more motivated, even more motivated than we are, to create a better planet. So I think all these aspects are important, but it is certainly a different leadership style. I had the chance to work with really great leaders when I look back, Barnevik, Percy Barnevik, Nick Scheele. I mean, Herb Hensler, the McKinsey man in Germany. I mean, this is just really great. But not just those. I have learned from so many people, and I think you can learn from everybody, really, what to do better. So I think that will create better leadership for the future.
Thank you. I love that you're highlighting that all the voices around the room and around the planet, it has to be heard for this to be a collaborative plan and strategy moving forward. And also that the way we think about collaboration and systemically changing these practices is pinnacle to our ability to overcome.
I wanted to hear from you, who has been a key person in your life. You talk about your partner, of course, and the support network. What has made the biggest change for you on being able to resist and be resilient through all of these years of challenges around you?
I think the biggest, I mean, obviously my husband, it's clear, my network, my friends, my family, the great persons I was able to work with, my teams, but also at the end of the day, my curiosity. And, you know, always stay open, and always, whenever you meet a person, you know what you learn. And from Percy Barnevik, I learned one thing, you know, when he came to management meetings, he would, as he called, work the room. Maybe you know 10 of 100 people, but work the room, meaning really going from one to the next, really systematically, introduce yourself, exchange. And it's amazing the enrichment you get just by doing that. I was at an event of the McKinsey alumni with Robert as well in Zurich. And at the end, I was a little tired or so, and I just sat down somewhere. And I can just tell you, I had such a great exchange with a young female McKinsey lady about her life and, you know, what she's doing. So I think what's really important to do a bit of that, to be open to meet new people and to hear them and listen what they say.
Is that the best advice you've ever gotten, or is there some other best advice that you could share that you've gotten from others?
I think the best advice is really to empower, inspire teams. Make them to be the winners. And actually in Philips, I invited once, there was a 5-time gold medalist swimmer in Holland that was also sponsored technology by Philips. I invited him to my management team, and then I interviewed him on stage for my teams. And I asked him, so tell me, Philip van den Hogebrand was his name. Philips, what does it mean to you to win he came with all these medals. What does it mean to you? And he said, Barbara, very simple. Every morning when I get up and I look into the mirror, I just feel good. And I mean, it's easy. I mean, you don't have to get 5 gold medals to feel good. But I think to really ensure that your teams can do that and they feel good when they go home, I think that's important.
Barbara, I heard with your coaching for vision, you sometimes do some things with individuals as well. What is that all about?
Yeah, it happened the following. When I came back to Zurich, a number of people, you know, said to me, let's have an exchange. They say, let's have a coffee. And then they would ask, what should I do with my career and so on. I decided this was not very professional. So I developed, it's like a 1-page strategy for yourself. And it doesn't start with what's my next job. It starts with the vision. And the vision is very simple definition for me. It's the photo of the future. And that's really how to work that out, and then how to achieve it. That's really what I have developed. And I'm doing that, you know, selectively, but and it's great to see when it works. And you know, the first person, a manager that I have been working with on that, it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes 2 hours to build that 1-page strategy. And he then felt so empowered. He took a much bigger role than he had before in Asia. And so for him, it was like a next step. And that's what the idea is.
Any last advice for people aspiring to have impactful careers, leadership roles?
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be with you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. It's a pity we cannot be together in a room. And now a lot of you are from the US and the US alumni team. I just want to leave you with a quote from an American philosopher who spent a lot of time in Germany, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he said a great thing, which I really like. And he said, nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. So I wish you all a lot of enthusiasm. We have so many great things to do around ourselves. We have great things to do to reduce the 2 to the 1 planet, among others. We have so many opportunities going forward. So let's have this enthusiasm all together. And I think we will just be better, and we'll create a better world for the future. What a way to end our hour today together. Thanks so much, Barbara. Thanks to all the participants that joined in. Thanks to Vic. Thanks to Cynthia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Vic.
Happy
Thank
Global
you.
INSEAD Day to everybody.